well. My name is Sam Jenks. I am the CRO as well as SRM enthusiast, and I guess I could call myself expert at this point in time at Kodiak Hub. Looking forward to digging into today's session surrounding CRM versus SRM for supplier management. Also, taking the time to be able to understand which one is right for you. What you'll see on screen here now is the agenda for today. We want to be able to take a moment to look at Kodiak at a glance. For those of you that aren't familiar about who Kodiak Hub is as a vendor, we're going to take a moment just to look at our modular offering. Beyond that, we're going to get into today's content, and that's going to be the meat and potatoes following the glance at Kodiak, talking really about what are the jobs to be done, right? These jobs are surmounting within the space of procurement, and we need better tooling to be able to get those jobs done. Then the question is, well, how are we going to get investment in software as a service to be able to get these surmounting jobs done? And then the question is, well, is SRM right for me? I think that our session today will hopefully be able to guide you in some of these questions, determining CRM versus SRM. We're going to provide a side-by-side comparison, also determining the decision-making framework that we think could be helpful for many of those in attendance if you are, in fact, looking to put those solutions side by side. We're also going to provide a very high-level demo of Kodiak Hub's platform to be able to complement today's session and give you an understanding of what a modern SRM solution looks like. Contra, for example, maybe a CRM solution. And then towards the end, we will have a Q&A. For those of you that do stick around to the very end, we also have a very special treat, or I would say a surprise. So if you dare to stick around, then you will have the opportunity to be able to know more about what that is towards the end of today's session. We'll get into the day's agenda in just a moment, but before we do, with the 32 individuals that are in attendance and more that are continuing to pile in, I would love to warm up the chat. Thank you so much for all of your guys' thumbs up. Let's start writing in the chat where we're calling in from around the world. It's always a fun exercise to be able to understand where people are. I'm going to start off. Stockholm, Sweden is where I'm currently sitting myself. It would be great to know where everybody is located. Go ahead and warm up the chat, and let's see how international today's session is. Awesome. We have Manchester in the house, Singapore in the house, Toronto, Canada, Wisconsin, Atlanta, Athens, Greece, Northampton, UK, Romania, Fort Worth, Texas. Very cool. Düsseldorf in Germany, Leeds, Oxfordshire, Kansas City. Wow. Thank you guys for joining in both early and later in your days. Kingston, Jamaica. Narisha, nice to have you joining us as well. Amazing. Let's get into today's content, and we will then hopefully be able to cover a lot of ground today again on understanding the difference between CRM and SRM and determining which is in fact right for you. For those of you that don't know about Kodiak, at a glance, Kodiak Hub is a supplier relationship management provider based out of Stockholm, Sweden, with teams spread across the UK, DACH, and the United States. We have a suite that our customers love and rave about, and don't just take it from us. Feel free to go and check us out on G2, Capterra, or some of those other sites that are out there for reviews to be able to understand what our customers are saying about Kodiak Hub. About our solution, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Kodiak's solution today, but at a high level, the solution is a modular one. Our suite of modules at Kodiak provide our customers with capabilities to be able to not only manage supplier information, data, and documentation housed all in one place, but they also give us the opportunity to be able to manage risk from a third-party perspective, country risk, sanctions, financials, and media, as well as then also the lifecycle management of the vendor beyond third-party risk management, intake, onboarding and self-assessment, quality management, and performance evaluation as well, all available within the Kodiak platform. Now, When it comes down to it, we love to work with the teams that we're working with. We work with world-class procurement organizations, the brag slide, so to say. The reason I'm showing this is not just to say we work with great brands, which we do, but more so than anything, to be able to show that we work with businesses where quality and sustainability matters with global and complex supply chains. That's really the sweet spot for the companies that are utilizing the Kodiak platform. Now, before we get deeper into the session, I wanted to be able to start with a quick poll to warm things up here and understand where is everybody within their particular SRM journey. So here I'm now going to launch a poll for everyone. You'll be able to answer this particular poll. Where are you in your journey of supplier relationship management? Are you currently gaining an understanding in an awareness phase? Are you getting educated at the moment, building momentum in your business? Are you actively selecting a solution? Or are you already mature? You've already adopted a solution for supplier relationship management. Where are you guys in your current journey? 36 people in attendance, 16 votes. Please take the time to be able to vote so we understand exactly where everybody is in their current path and their current journey for supplier relationship management. Fantastic. Thank you guys for taking the time. We're going to move on then now. 26 votes out of the 36 people in attendance. Let's try and get more engagement on the next one. We'll see if we can do so. But it seems like it's about a 60-40 split here. People 60% earlier in their journey, about 40% though of those 20% that are currently looking for solutions, 20% that have already adopted. So it's a nice blend of individuals today, and hopefully we'll be able to share learnings amongst ourselves as well. One of the things that I think that I've been hearing time and time again is that procurement in 2025 has a lot on their plate. And I think that 2026 and beyond, it's just going to continue to grow. The traditional role of procurement as we know it, one that's focused on cost reduction and savings and risk management, well, that's not going anywhere, right? Cost is still king, especially in this particular market. The macroeconomics of the world are focusing on how can we be able to be more efficient with every dollar that we spend. And I think that procurement is at the center of that equation. With that being said, the jobs to be done are simply surmounting, right? There's new challenges and new responsibilities on procurement to be able to spearhead transparency, resilience, and driving performance amidst various trade challenges, whether those be related back to geopolitical issues, tariffs, resource shortages, and alike. When it's all said and done, businesses are turning towards procurement, supply chain, sourcing functions to be able to spearhead one thing and one thing only, right? Get the right price at the right quality from sustainable source suppliers. Oh, and by the way, do it fast and in a resilient supply chain. Super simple, right? When it's all said and done, the jobs, like we're talking about, are in fact surmounting. And don't just take it from us. What we see on screen here is a snapshot from Hackett Group, a Hackett Group procurement agenda and key issues study. What are we seeing here? Well, what you see to the left is the total workload volume. Their predictions were that the projected percentage change was that about 10% more workload would be expected on procurement. With that being said, growth in staff, only 1%. That creates a productivity gap, of 8.8%, nearly 9%. And it creates also an efficiency gap that follows the exact same trend. Now, at the same time, they have also predicted that procurement technology spend will increase, but incrementally, 5.6%. So what does this mean? Your businesses are asking you to do more with less, faster, and better than before. but they're not really interested in investing the cash to do so. It's a problem. It's a problem that's been around and continues to be around. The fact is that we're here not only to service our customers and the market with good technology, but to put in your hands the case that you need, the language you need to sell your case for supplier relationship management solutions, but also other procure tech solutions. Because the fact is, 72% of procurement teams are still managing suppliers with Excel or homegrown solutions. 28% of high performing businesses have already adopted solutions out there in the market. What our focus is to do is to help businesses move from the 72% into the 28% that are of top performers. There's a bit of a hinder here, though. Well, sometimes it could even be IT. I heard once a procurement professional, a CPO at a company, not to be named, not to call them out, say to me a very fun but rather true statement once before. IT is like the police. When you need them, they're nowhere to be found. When you don't need them, they're looking over your shoulder. I think that it's in certain aspects, yes, comical. IT has a tough job though, right? They're trying to control ecosystems within global enterprises in most cases for the businesses that are here today. We're going to talk exactly about the job that IT has to do and why you might be hearing something like this from your IT director. We're already using this system. We should maybe just try and repurpose it. I think that this particular statement is something that we've seen over and over again within the market. Salesforce is already in the business. D365 is already in the business. Let's try and repurpose our CRM for SRM. The issue? Well, CRMs are for sales. SRM is for procurement. It's something that we need to remember, and we need to try and sell into the business. CRMs are revenue driving solutions. SRMs are resilience driving solutions. And we'll talk about this in depth in just a moment. But before we do, I wanted to run a quick poll here and ask everybody in attendance, have you ever been asked to investigate the CRM as a tool for SRM? I'm curious because those of you that have chosen to attend today's session, I assume maybe did so for a reason, but I wanted to understand, is this dichotomy between IT and you in procurement happening today? Are you being asked to be able to repurpose or at least investigate the CRM as a tool for SRM? Take a second to be able to answer the poll that now has been launched. About 20 votes and 40 people in attendance. Please take a second to be able to vote when you have a second here. Interesting. Okay. Leave the voting open for a few more moments. Please take a second to be able to vote. Excellent. Thank you all for taking the time to be able to vote as well. What it seems like, if we stop this poll, is 30 people out of the 40 attending have now voted. And those that did vote, it is about a 60-40 split. 60% have said no, they have not been asked to investigate the CRM as a tool for SRM. 40% yes. Now, I would love to be able to dig into, how it is that you were asked, why it is that you were asked to be able to investigate that tool. If anybody wants to share their experience at a high level in the chat, it'd be interesting. If anybody has a question to ask around this in the chat, it'd be interesting as well. What I want to be able to take a second, though, to talk about is the aspect of purchasing IT as well as software as a service in the enterprise, because it's a precarious thing here, right? Let's take an example. Company ABC. So, generic company ABC is a manufacturing or an energy business, right? They turn over 1 billion in revenue, which means that they purchase on an annual basis of definitely above a half a million, a half a billion, maybe upwards of even 600 billion, 700 billion, right? They have about 10,000 employees and they have about 50 people in their procurement organization. Now, let's break this down. A 1 billion revenue business in the space of manufacturing or energy, they likely have a spend annually of 49 million US dollars on SaaS solutions. What does that also mean? They have between 100 to 250, depending upon how many of these are shadow tech, but they have anywhere between 100 to 250 SaaS apps across the business. These are the ranges that are estimated from data from Okta as well as Xylo. What does that mean is that they pay, if it's on the higher end of those SaaS apps, $180,000 per year per SaaS solution. If they have 10,000 employees, it means that per FTE, they're spending almost $5,000 a year in SaaS spend per FTE. It creates crazy ecosystems and architectures. 250 solutions broken across various business roles and responsibilities, and people in the end, don't know what to do, right? IT has a massive infrastructure to be able to manage in this context. And even in procurement alone, looking at source to pay as a process to be able to cover, there's various capabilities that are required. When looking at kind of the modern architecture for S2P, it could very well look like this. You have a enterprise resource planning solution. So you might have S4HANA. And then you maybe have a solution or two for sourcing strategy, a sourcing or two for RFPs and CLM, a solution potentially for purchase to pay. You might have a handful of solutions for third-party risk management feeding into something that is your central source of truth and relationship management or performance management solution like Kodiak Hub. In procurement and sourcing alone, you might have anywhere from 7 to 15 solutions. It's an architecture that is difficult for IT teams to be able to continue to say, go out and spend, go out and buy more. So of course, it's easy to say, have you looked into the CRM as an option to be able to go out and buy? Now, I want to be able to take a second and poll here, because this is a very interesting topic of IT being involved in tech buying decisions. And I'm curious, in your business, is IT the budget holder for procurement and supply chain technology? Or does this sit within your own budget for technology? Take a second to be able to answer the poll that's now been launched here. And I have an inkling feeling that there might be a correlation between the yeses and the nos in the prior question for this particular item as well. Is IT the budget holder for your technology spend in procurement and supply chain? Take a second to be able to answer the poll that's now live. 22 votes. People are continuing to vote. We'll leave it on for one more moment and then we'll close it out. And we'll stop the poll there. All right, very interesting. It was a 50-50 split here of IT being the budget holder, closely in certain aspects aligned to IT asking to be able to go and investigate the CRM as a SRM tool. So not very surprising in that perspective. Now, the next topic that we want to dive into is, of course, what we're all here for. I think, though, that it was important to be able to give some background and understanding of the expectations that are growing on procurement, and what it takes to be able to buy in today's ecosystem, particularly in the enterprise. Now let's talk about CRM versus SRM as a topic. I want to start with a top level view of what we mean by CRM versus SRM. And let's talk for a second about what the strategic goal is of these two solutions, because I, as a salesperson, my team of account executives, they use their CRM on a day-to-day basis. And here's the fact. Bain and Company has gone out to market and in their 2025 CPO report and said, category managers of the future are going to be multidisciplinary. But what does that mean? Equal to the way that an account executive in sales requires a CRM, category managers will also require relationship management solutions. Now, the question is, can you be able to repurpose the CRM, or do you need an SRM? I think that it's important to take a step back and think, what is the end goal in mind, right? For me, CRMs are about revenue and retention, whereas SRMs are about results and resilience and risk. When it's all said and done, CRMs are focused on increasing sales and retention and the customer lifetime value. These solutions are in place so that you can become the supplier of choice, or at least the preferred supplier. SRMs are in place to improve supplier performance, reduce risk, ensure compliance, and drive resilience. They're in place to make sure that you, as procurement professionals, become the customer of choice. Now, to be able to give a pretty distinct differentiation between these two solutions, we have a side-by-side comparison matrix that we're going to get into in a second. But before we do that, what I wanted to be able to share was two different models. During our last webinar that we hosted back in September, we hosted and brought up a model around the SRM flywheel, a flywheel that could be able to support how a business could go about sourcing more strategically, utilizing small incremental elements of a plan, do, check, act focused process to be able to create momentum in supplier relationships. Funnily enough, HubSpot, a vendor in the CRM space, a vendor that we love and use in our sales organization, as well as our marketing organization, have a flywheel themselves as well. What we see here is that their flywheel is focused on, again, revenue and sales, attracting new potential prospects, engaging with those prospects and converting them into customers, ultimately to delight them and create promoters with better customer support. Again, a focus that is very much on the go-to-market side of the business. And this is not to say that procurement doesn't have a place in driving revenue. Quite the contrary. In fact, we think that procurement should be at the center of trying to be able to ensure that suppliers are driving the right performance to be able to drive revenue in a business. But with that being said, SRM is distinctly different in its flywheel and its capabilities from CRM. What is the focus within the SRM flywheel? Well, segmentation and setting the category strategy, managing risk and conducting due diligence. This leads to being able to negotiate good contracts and onboard and qualify the right suppliers, risk-averse suppliers. Ultimately, so you can check auditing quality, tracking performance, analyzing spend, to end up doing the whole thing all over again after you correct, develop, and innovate, right? Again, a framework that's focused on lifecycle management of setting the strategy, conducting risk and due diligence, onboarding and qualification, managing performance, correcting, developing, innovating, and again, doing it all over again. Each small increment builds upon the next, but a very keen focus on the supplier base rather than the customer base, and a staunch differentiation between CRM and SRM. When we look at the two solutions side by side, CRM is excellent for repositing data and driving revenue. SRM is Excellent for being able to deposit data, but also to manage risk resilience and focus on KPIs and results, measuring the supplier base and how they're living up to different KPIs that you have in place. CRMs are excellent at helping to be able to have a thread for communication, tasks, and follow up. SRMs are excellent at corrective actions, communication between vendors and buyers that are going to drive collaboration, improvements, innovation, and ultimately compliance. CRMs are excellent at helping to manage company or target accounts, prospects, leads, deals, and pipelines. SRMs, they're focused on helping you to be able to measure vendor performance, capture certifications, audits, and spend and visualize these things so you can make smarter decisions. Side by side, when we look at these features between CRM and SRM, it becomes quite apparent. Customer relationship management is a focus for sales, marketing, and customer success, whereas SRM is focused on procurement, supply chain, quality, compliance, and ESG. Now, in no way, shape, or form are we saying that a CRM solution could not be utilized for SRM. In fact, the next section that we're going to get into is talking about the decision-making framework that we think is very important for everybody here to have to be able to determine if CRM could be quote unquote good enough. But what we also recognize is that they are distinctly different in their capabilities. And with that being said, important that we're able to vocalize that internally as to why a supplier relationship management solution is required if it is in fact what we're looking to be able to do is drive risk, resilience, and performance in the supplier base. Now, before we get into the last section and the decision-making framework, I want to ask one last question, everybody, just to understand really quickly where you guys are at. How many different tools do you currently use today to manage the supplier lifecycle? SIM, intake, onboarding, due diligence, risk, quality. If you were to look at that flywheel that we pulled up, right? How many different solutions are you currently utilizing to be able to manage your vendor base? Take a second to be able to answer the poll that has now been launched here. We'll leave the poll up for another few moments here. Please take a second to be able to answer. We'll close it down in 5, 4. All right. So about 70, 80%, definitely 80, 85% of today's attendees say that they are, 50% of them are 1 to 3 solutions, 40% 3 to 5, with the outliers of 11% being more than 5 solutions, and the absolute minority all in one. Very interesting to be able to understand. And I think also kind of paints the picture of where procurement is at today, right? Again, we have a lot of jobs to get done, but there is no central source of truth to be able to get them done in. No one-stop shop solution that's going to support us in our journey to manage the relationships of vendors. And I think that that's exactly the problem with us, I would say, downplaying, or businesses downplaying, the importance of supplier relationship management and otherwise looking towards CRM as this potential silver bullet. What I want to talk about for a second is the ecosystem of SRM and the really staunch distinction that I think exists between the two. In SRM, there is one really primary distinction. Now, a CRM can equally have different types of third-party curated data feeding in. and different solutions that are hooked up. For example, our CRM has this webinar tool integrated, right? We have, for example, prospecting tools integrated where we can make sure that we can get different contact details and account names into our CRM, right? Just in the same way that a SRM would maybe have third-party curated data on risk or financials or sanctions and reputational aspects or digital signing and alike. And of course, the CRM might also be hooked up to an ERP or finance system for invoicing or orders, just in the same way that SRM will likely share data with the ERP for POs and contracts and spend and master data and alike. I think that the main distinct difference when it comes to SRM versus CRM comes here, right? It is the capabilities related back to internal and external quote unquote portal capabilities for data input and also for communication and collaboration. Within Kodiak Hub and within most SRM solutions of today, there's an opportunity to capture data not just from where data already lies, but from where data otherwise remains unstructured in emails, in documents, from your suppliers and from your internal stakeholders, right? The distinct difference is that SRM typically requires and also relies upon the engagement of suppliers in portal-like interfaces to actually get the jobs done that are required of you within the procurement organization to manage risk, resilience, and also compliance. So then the question is still here, right? It's still lingering. How do you and how do I know if I'm ready for an SRM? But also, when is maybe a CRM good enough? When could it possibly be the case that I don't maybe need an SRM solution? I think that this is a question we all need to ask ourselves. And for this, we've created our decision-making framework. This decision-making framework is very simple. It's based upon, as you see on the left-hand side of the screen here, business context. So what stage is your company at? How many suppliers do you have? What is your spend complexity? Do you have risks in your industry? Are there requirements on compliance? Do you have a complex or geographically large footprint and supply chain? Is there types of relationships that you have with your vendors that drive a need for deeper relationship management? Does your business have risk tolerance? Also, what is the size of your team to do the jobs that are surmounting? What we have in this framework is two columns. The opportunity to be able to say CRM is good enough and SRM is essential. The way that we look at it is that the rule of kind of 6 of 9. And I guess that if you were going to take this and add on a 10th, then maybe it would be 7 of 10. But pretty much any way that you take this particular matrix and start to put check marks next to it, as long as you have 6 out of 9 of the items, you can be able to say, SRM is essential to us. We need a solution that is a supplier relationship management capabilities because the CRM is just not going to cut it, right? With that being said, if you are an early stage business with a small vendor base, with primarily indirect spend, you don't have a lot of compliance requirements. You have a single market source and supplier base, domestic maybe to your country. You have very transactional relationships. Well, in that case, the CRM might be just good enough for you. If it's not, then SRM might be essential for your business. If you're interested in, of course, getting this decision-making framework, then you can feel free to reach out. We're happy to be able to share